from the San Mateo County Libraries. Very, very welcome. I'm very pleased to welcome you here tonight. Our goal is to make meditating and mindfulness more accessible through poetry. To that end, we've brought together several very special guests. Your poetry and mindfulness journey begins with Supervisor Warren Slocum, who's here tonight. We have Professor Janet Stickmon, who's going to walk us through a couple of things, including a guided meditation. And we also have San Mateo County Poets Laureate Emerita, Carolyn Goodwin, and Lisa Rosenberg. So I will hand it over to Supervisor Slocum in just one moment, but I want to let everybody know that you are on mute, and we'll stay on mute, so you can't change that. But we welcome you to use the chat feature, which is at the bottom toolbar of your screen. And you're welcome to chat to our guests tonight, and just make comment on the poetry or on the meditation. So with that, let me introduce Supervisor Slocum. So Supervisor Slocum serves on the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors as the representative of the 4th Supervisorial District. This district includes the cities of Redwood City, East Palo Alto, the areas of the city of Menlo Park, east of El Camino Real, and the unincorporated community of North Fair Oaks. First elected to office on November 5th, 2012, in January of 2020, Supervisor Slocum was elected for his second term as president of the board. Welcome, Supervisor Slocum. Oh, one more thing. Of course, a poetry lover. Supervisor Slocum is a poetry lover. I think a Calm app user, and a veteran. Thank you, Supervisor Slocum.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks, special thanks and shout out to Anne Marie for her leadership. Obviously, San Mateo County residents are well served by our library system, and in large part, the responsibility falls with Anne Marie and her entire team, who the ones that I've interacted with have just been so special. Thank you. And Nicole, thank you for all the work getting us all here and getting me here on time. And is it poets? Do I say poets laureate or is it poets laureate?
I think so.
For getting them here tonight. I'm really excited about this program. It's the second in our 3-part series. And I just want to give another shout out to Supervisor Carol Groom, who couldn't join us tonight, but who has been a partner in poetry in the county since its very beginning. And just wanted to appreciate and acknowledge her and the fact that she was unable to join us tonight. And let's see, I am really, really looking forward to the guided meditation, Janet. I'm so excited about it. My big debate in the my last 33 minutes was when I join in on the meditation, should I leave my video on or should I turn it off? And so I've resolved that with myself, but I am very excited. Thank you. And you know, speaking of poetry, of course, everybody knows that one of my favorite poets is Billy Collins, because I happen to really enjoy his humor, part of his poetry. But also, I've been into meditation for quite some time, and I'm going to give you a real easy, simple kind of explanation about how straightforward meditation can be. It doesn't have to scare any of us. You know, I really hate, like many people, going to the dentist. And just the thought of a dental appointment gets my blood pressure going, gets my heart racing. And I had a couple of appointments recently for some fairly, important dental work. And so I had managed to, by the time I got to the front door of the dental clinic, had worked myself up into a dental frenzy. And when I sat in the chair, my mindfulness, some lecture I had heard, kicked in, And as I'm sitting there, I just said, I'm going to be here in this moment. And I started to count my breaths, 1 on the inhale, 2 on the exhale, up to 10, and then repeat as needed. And I'll just tell you that, you know, meditation can be that straightforward and simple. And I relaxed, believe it or not. And I don't want to say it was a painless experience, but it really helped slow my heart rate and get me kind of off that rat wheel I've been on. So just wanted to appreciate Janet and her work and our guided meditation tonight. Thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you, Supervisor. I will try. I have a dental appointment coming up, so I think I will to give that a try. So now I want to welcome Janet Stickmon. Janet is an educator, author, and workshop facilitator. She has been an educator for over 20 years and is currently a professor of humanities, specializing in ethnic studies at Napa Valley College. She has practiced meditation for over 25 years and integrated meditation into her curriculum as a college professor and former high school teacher. Stickmon is the author of Crushing Soft Rubies, a memoir, Midnight Peaches, 2 O'Clock Patience, a collection of essays, poems, and short stories on womanhood and the spirit, and her latest book, To Black Parents Visiting Earth, Raising Black Children in the 21st Century. Stickmon's essays have appeared in the Huffington Post, Mother Magazine, Read to Write Stories, Positively Filipino, and Red and Yellow, Black and Brown, Decentering Whiteness in Mixed Race Studies from Rutgers University. Janet Stickmon is also the author of Centered Joy, Strategies for Healing Racial Battle Fatigue, a group coaching program for professionals of color who want to heal their racial battle fatigue and center joy in their lives. Welcome, Janet.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Nicole. It's such a pleasure and an honor to be a part of this poetry and mindfulness event this evening. And let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll go ahead and begin. If I could get a thumbs up. Can folks see my screen? Everything looks fine? Okay, and you can hear me fine? Okay, all right. We will go ahead and begin with our guided meditation. And I would love to invite you to if you're seated in a chair, if you can have your feet flat on the floor and have your back up against the back of your chair, or if you are on a bed, just making sure that your back is up against a solid surface. All right. Now, if you happen to, whether you're on a bed or on the floor or seated in a chair, if you can just make sure that your hands are flat on your lap, either palms up or palms down, I'll leave that up to you. All right. And please take a moment to close your eyes. And if we can please take a deep breath in through the nose. And exhale. Take another deep breath in. And exhale. Take another deep breath in and hold it at the apex and release. And as we continue to inhale and exhale, let this breath be a beautiful reminder of the life that runs through us and sustains us. Let's allow our bodies to soften and relax into stillness. And let's begin with our shoulders. Allow your shoulders to soften and relax into stillness. And now allow your jaw to soften and relax into stillness. And let's allow your face to soften and relax into stillness. And allow a soft beginning of a smile to wash over your face. And at this time, I'd like you to bring gentle attention to any areas of tension, aches or pains in your body. And wherever there may be this tension or pain, just take notice of that area of the body. And without judgment, breathe in and release. Breathe into those areas. And gently return your attention back to the breath. Do that as many times as you'd like. Gentle attention to that area of the body. Breathe into that area. Release. And then return your attention gently back to the breath. If you notice or observe any thoughts or sounds that you may find distracting. Bring gentle attention to those thoughts or those sounds. And without judgment, you can lift them out or lift them up and away from the body. And then bring your attention back to the breath. Feel free to do that as many times as you'd like. And at this time, I'd like you to ask yourself what intention you'd like to hold for this evening. And allow the answer to come forth on its own, whether it be in the form of words, an image, or a sensation. What is your intention? And as that intention emerges, allow yourself to be immersed in that intention. Immersed in that intention so that you are embodying it. Allow yourself to hold that intention in your heart and in your mind and in your body. Throughout the rest of the evening, throughout the rest of the night, throughout the rest of the week. And as we close this meditation, if we can take a deep breath in and exhale. Take another deep breath in And exhale. And take one last deep breath in and hold it at the top. And gently release. Now slowly open your eyes. Be kind to yourself as you're coming out of meditation. And as you come out, feel free to massage your hands and stretch. If you want to massage your face, feel free. Again, be as kind as you can to yourself as you're coming out of meditation. Welcome back. How are you? Feel free to either drop something in the chat or you can put an emoji on your tile. In any case, welcome back. All right. Now, over the next few minutes, I'd like to share a few thoughts when it comes to what mindfulness is, what meditation is, what mindfulness meditation is, and offer my thoughts with regards to how we can begin to our own practice. All right. And so one of the things that I think is really a beautiful way to begin is just talking about, how is mindfulness defined? And I'd like to draw upon Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition. He is the creator of MBSR meditation, the mindfulness-based stress reduction program. And he talks about mindfulness being this. Mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and doing so non-judgmentally. All right. And I think this is a beautiful way to concisely capture this state of mindfulness. Another definition, mindfulness is a state of attention to present moment experience without conceptual elaboration or emotional reactivity. This is Amishi Aja. This is a research and director of Contemplative Neuroscience and Mindfulness Research and Practice Initiative. And so this, I think, really emphasizes the whole idea of remaining in the present and not being emotionally engaged when it comes to perhaps certain thoughts that might emerge throughout one's mindfulness practice. All right. And so the two of these together, I think, give us a really good description of what we're looking at in terms of mindfulness. One of the individuals I've been really influenced by when it comes to mindfulness and meditation and the breadth of research that's out there is the work of Barbara Laravey. She has this wonderful book that I can't recommend highly enough called A Daily Dose of Mindfulness, Mindful Moments. And she talks about how mindfulness is not exactly the same thing as mindfulness meditation and is not exactly the same thing as meditation. And she fleshes all of that out considering, the breadth of research that's been out there, over the decades. All right. And she talks about mindfulness meditation being a type of meditation and being among the many paths that lead to mindfulness. The way she defines meditation is very, very fluid, okay? Talking about it being an activity that keeps attention fixed in the present moment, that allows you to transcend your normal state of consciousness, all right? And when you're able to block out everything except for that focal point, it's that focal point that maintains your attention, then you're in a meditative state, all right? And she says that, meditation, it doesn't have to just be sitting meditation. We could be moving. We could find ourselves meditating while eating or baking or cooking or while in prayer. That ultimately the common goal is that we're training our attention. We're training our awareness so that our consciousness is finely tuned to what's going on in the present. Okay. Something else that I've found really enlightening is just the whole idea about meditation not only being for silencing the mind. Most certainly that can be one of its main purposes. I know that has been the case for me, but it can also be for strengthening one's concentration, or one could be in the midst of contemplating a particular issue or state of mind. All right, it could be used for visualization. And so there are a whole host of meditation practices. This is just a handful of common ones, and I'm sure, given the wealth of experience and wisdom in the room, there are a number of you that probably have practices that you can add to this list. But one thing that we did today, guided meditation to open up this evening's event. There's also transcendental meditation. Some folks might be familiar with this particular type, especially if you may focus on a mantra or a word, and that's something that you constantly return to during your meditation. Some may find themselves meditating while walking, all right? Particularly if their pace is slow and they're able to notice all of their surroundings, all right? Some may do something just as simple as turn on some meditative music and relax into stillness, okay? Body scan is another example, all right? Mindfulness meditation, another example, all right? And specifically, mindfulness meditation being one that allows us to return to the breath, okay? We're focusing on the breath. We're paying attention to what we feel in our bodies, all right? We're able to observe our thoughts and our feelings, but do so without judgment, all right? And do our best to note any distractions and let go of them, but also do so without judgment, which can be quite a challenge, but nonetheless, that's something that we can develop over time, okay? And one of the things that I like about what Supervisor Slocum had mentioned is the simplicity, of meditation, that we don't need much. And sometimes when people hear the word meditation, it's quite daunting because they think that it involves more than what they can offer. Okay, that they have to sit still, that they have to have all these different things, they have to have the perfect environment. And none of that necessarily needs to be the case. All right, so let's say you don't have a practice of your own and you're interested in starting your own practice. I believe that you need just a handful of things. Okay, you can begin with a quiet environment, all right, an open heart. And you can use the timer on your cell phone or a mindfulness bell just to keep you aware of how much time is passing, especially if you're working with limited amount of time. I put a list here of other things that may help us to meditate, okay? Some of us may find it much easier to meditate if we have a meditation app. I think a very well-known app being the Calm app. And this is something that will be spoken about in more detail later on in this evening's presentation. But the library has free access to this app. So this is something I highly recommend. If you want to create a meditative atmosphere, sometimes you might want to have some plants or flowers around, a candle, music. I put in here, a blanket, tissue. Sometimes some emotions might come up for us while we're meditating. We may need some tissue nearby. Or if you're a little bit like me, you might be on the cold side. So if you have a light blanket nearby, you can rest that on your arms or on your legs or wherever you may need it. Okay. Something I mentioned at the end of the meditation is being kind to yourself. I think this is so important. Whether we are just beginning our practice or we are several years in, be as kind to yourself as you can while meditating. And one of the things that I encourage is practicing self-forgiveness. And when it comes to sitting still, sometimes people may find that hard and discover, well, you know, I'm meditating, I'm trying my best to meditate, but I can't sit still. That's okay. Okay, that's okay. Perhaps over time, you'll be able to be more still. But if not, perhaps there's just a lot, you know, the pace that your body has been operating at has been quite quick, and it may take your body some time and your mind some time to slow down. And if that's the case, let it be. All right. Likewise, when it comes to distracting sounds, sometimes I find myself getting really mad at a loud noise or this pestering thought that keeps on, you know, passing through my mind. And then, you know, I get so irritated by the distraction that it ruins the whole vibration and I don't even feel like meditating anymore. And when that happens, I end up just trying my best to step back and say, you know what, it's okay. This is the time where I can lift out or lift up that distraction and come back to the breath. Okay. Be open to a range of outcomes. All right. And if one just simply wants to begin with noticing, that is, I think that is a beautiful way to find yourself in a meditative and a mindfulness state. Okay. You know, asking yourself, well, what do I hear? What do I see? What do I smell? Okay. Getting in tune with all those senses. All right. Now, some people might have the question as far as time, and there is a variety of opinions out there with regards to how long one's meditation should be. And oftentimes we may see people talk about a range, all right, anywhere from 2 minutes to as long as 20 minutes. If one is just starting off, you can start really short, 2 minutes, and then you can increase it as you go, okay? Typically, we may hear folks talking about meditating 10 minutes a day, all right? There's also some research that talks about the effectiveness of meditating 1 minute every hour and then setting your mindfulness clock, all right? So it's completely up to you. I invite folks to play around with these different practices and see what fits what fits you the best. All right. So thank you so much for your time. I hope this was helpful, and I'll hand it back over to Nicole.
Thank you, Janet. I've been lucky. This is not the first time I've participated in a guided meditation with Janet. Some of you may know that Janet is also a writing teacher, and has provided writing workshops through the library from time to time. I don't think we have one scheduled at the moment, but I am certain we will bring Janet back in the future. And each of those workshops, and it's so lovely, but Janet does open with a guided meditation to facilitate the writing process. And also, I will let you know that Janet has provided a resource list, which I will share with everyone who registered for tonight's program. So that will come in an email after this program, along with a link to the recording. So we are recording tonight. Next, I'm really pleased to welcome Lisa. Lisa Rosenberg served as the second Poet Laureate of San Mateo County and is the author of A Different Physics, a poetry collection that draws on her years in science and engineering. A former Wallace Stevens Fellow, she has a keen interest in the commonality of arts and sciences and in bringing shared tools to industry, education, and public discourse. Her poems and essays appear in journals and anthologies such as Poetry, The Threepenny Review, Witness, Organizational Aesthetics and California Fire and Water, a Climate Crisis Anthology. Lisa is a Mosaic America Fellow and has been awarded an upcoming Jirazi residency. Welcome, Lisa.
How many dawns, chilled by his rippling rest, the seagull's wings shall dip and pivot him, shedding white rings of tumult, building high over the chained bay waters, liberty. How many dawns? I offered that rather than starting with the thanks, which I do include, to Nicole, to Anne-Marie, to my fellow and sister panelists here, and to the supervisors. Grateful for your ongoing support of poetry and all the work you do to bring poetry into our shared toolkit for life. The excerpt I just read was from Hart Crane's The Bridge, the prologue to Brooklyn Bridge, and it was written in the 1930s. And the bridge itself is a book-length poem. The prologue is just a couple pages. But How Many Dawns has really become a touchstone for me, a cue to breathe. It opens. How many dawns? It reminds me of the bell. I think it was a little warming dish bell from the mindfulness-based stress reduction class I took. And whenever I heard that bell later as a recording, I would have an expansive breath, just as a response that I had learned to habituate. And that is what poems, even small parts of poems and phrases, can do for us and through us and within us. They can be touchstones and cues to breathing, cues to rhythm, cues to movement, and all of those things that keep us functioning as healthy creatures. Breath, opening and settling, and grounding. And so tonight, I think both Caroline and I will talk about some of these more physical, creaturely aspects of poetry. And in that respect, it's very much, I'm so glad that we not only got the guided meditation, but also got to hear Janet speak about the process of meditation and mindfulness, because so many of these gifts and parts of the process are shared with poetry and with music and other arts. Being in a process that directs our attention, in a process that allows us to begin noticing, where there is no requirement for what we notice, but a facilitative structure and space that allows us to start noticing, to see what shows up, to be in a mode of observation and noticing. And that puts us a little bit removed from the emotions that we might otherwise be swirling in, and from the chattering mind. I often have, poets respond to language and very strongly at times. And I often have kind of a knee-jerk response to the term mindfulness, because anytime you read a definition of it, it's really talking about embodiment and about attentiveness, awareness, learning to work with our attention. And so mindfulness might be a little bit of a misnomer. Likewise, with poetry, we tend to think of it as a cerebral art or a cerebral pursuit, but it's very much a corporeal art, something of the body. It is based in rhythms. It uses the breath, the body as the instrument, and the rhythms of walking, of breathing, of the heart, and so forth. And its structures are built on that. In English, we talk about either the 4-foot or the 5-foot line, and those are very much the rhythms of walking and the kind of strolling that puts us in a meditative and receptive state, a listening state, an observational state. So this focus on the creaturely aspects, the physical aspects of poetry. In the first event, I talked a little bit more about the how and the devices of poetry, and the exploratory space, the maker space, and how we are as writers or as listeners, both audience and author. And so today we'll just really delve into a few more specifics. I am going to read a couple poems of my own, a couple poems by other poets or pieces of poems. And I think because our focus has been calm, which is a timely and much needed focus probably for all of us, I wanted to talk about vowel sounds. Not something that we always talk about, but the beginning of To Brooklyn Bridge has these low, long tones. They are slower tones. Vowel sounds are something that are, a big part of a poet's toolkit, just like consonantal songs. You could think of the combination as being like color and shading for a visual artist, graphic artist. But the vowel sounds really are correlated with emotion, emotional states, our musculature, our breathing. There's a reason that calming verses and calming lines have these long and lower sounds. They don't have high-pitched, frenzied sounds. And those are typically used in either lighter verse or perhaps more disquieting passages. So these long, low sounds, I found a printout of something that was a real, a favorite part of my learning, kind of the nuts and bolts of poetry, and that's the scale of the English vowels, the frequency scale of the English vowels. It also has kind of a bizarre schematic of the body producing the sounds, but I don't know how well you can see it. I'll hold it up here. And the sounds proceed from these long, low O's and ahs up to the higher I's and E's and the diphthongs. And if you examine parts of songs, parts of poems that have the more calming and soothing language, you will find these patterns. And we really do, the same goes for consonants. There are the way we form our face and hold our air passages. These are muscular patterns that we associate with emotional states. They're not universal, although some seem to be. They can be personal, but they definitely hold this kind of body knowledge that is ancient, it's physical, and it's also communal. And in that respect, like many other aspects of poetry, it helps us be in a mode that's greater than ourself. So it kind of takes us out of isolation, even if it's a pursuit that we're doing on our own. So I'll share a very short poem of mine now that has, again, these long, low sounds that help slow us down, which is another part of mindfulness. Getting out of the faster, older parts of our brain, the reptilian fight or flight, into the slower, more, the newer parts of our brain, and that slow and capable of compassion and measured thought. And this is I guess a few weeks off seasonally, but still has these lovely low sounds. Heart of autumn. Is it always this elemental? Boulder, reeds, and water. Thoughts skimming off the pond to meet you. And geese flapping near the far shore. A wood platform toward the center. Past 3 blue buoys, demarcating the shallows from the depths, like seasons, like intent from invitation. So that's a piece where I both wanted those solid, really solid images to be like stones, and to have those strongly stressed single syllables so that there was something tangible, as well as the softness of invitation and staying with these physical, very elemental objects. Even knowing that, our thoughts flap, just like the kind of hurried motion of the birds, and we can let them skim across the pond, so to speak. The other aspect that I think I will kind of gloss over a little more quickly, because we are a little tight on time, is structure. And structure is not the same as form, although they are interrelated. But to think of these physical aspects of poetry as part of what give it this internal structure, and that provides us with this safe exploratory space as writers, certainly, and as readers. These are audible structures. You can hear the rhythm of the line, you can hear the meter, the length of the line, you can hear the rhythmic patterns, and they are breath related. I'll read just a few lines from Wallace Stevens. The house was quiet and the world was calm. And you can kind of hear these roughly 5-foot lines, and they come in couplets, so little 2-line stanzas. The house was quiet and the world was calm. The reader became the book, and summer night was like the conscious being of the book. The house was quiet and the world was calm. The words were spoken as if there was no book, except that the reader leaned above the page, wanted to learn, wanted much most to be the scholar to whom his book is true, to whom the summer night is like a perfection of thought. The house was quiet because it had to be. And that's a very kind of Stevens-esque line there. It's a longer piece. I just read that one excerpt. I'll move now to, I think, just one piece of mine and one poem by Kevin Young, and a suggestion for an exercise that you might do on your own, very open-ended and low stress. This is a piece from my book, A Different Physics, and it is from the local mountains. Bull thistle. Pink crown on a globe of thorns, on a stem of spines. Smooth threads like corn silk, the burst top of choke that stuns without a sound. Sudden color on a slow day, working its way outward. Sentinel of the overgrown footpath. Traitor of sun, indifferent to sparse shelter of bay laurel, eucalyptus, and madrone. Scattered kin of artichoke, of wild stars whose signature is borne across our skin. We touch them, dry or just opened, nodding with the weight of bees. Each fattened calyx a promise of surprise when we open to stories in the ungroomed underbrush, to the sweet aftertaste of soft leaf flesh. So that piece started out in a sonnet-like form, and I ended up going for the blank verse and wanting to help unfold this sense of listening for stories, listening for whatever stories the underbrush might tell us. I am going to put in the chat a few links, especially to a poem called Hive by Kevin Young. And these are, again, they're more poems with low vowel sounds that I find sonorous and calming, even if it's just a phrase or two from them. So my suggestion / invitation to all of us is to gather some touchstones, cues to breathe, open, settle, slow down. These could be full poems. They could be pieces of poems or phrases, maybe with an image or a visual image that you find invites language and phrases of your own, whatever musical language comes in for you. And to put these in a little notebook. I hesitate to use the word journal because that almost sounds overstructured, but just a place to gather them so that you can come back to them. If you like, you can put them on a private blog or in some kind of journal, or physically type them or write them out by hand so that they become a little bit more part of you. And that's something you can grow and carry with you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for those beautiful poems. And also for the insights. I always love hearing you talk about poetry and the process of writing poetry. It's very inspiring. So I was going to talk about the Calm Lab at the end, but we are running low on time, and I would like to give Caroline her full time. So I'm going to drop a couple of links in the chat. And then once again, everyone who registered tonight I will send information via email about the Calm app. It's available for free to anyone with a San Mateo County Library's library card. Okay, so Carolyn. Carolyn Goodwin served as from 2014 to 2016 as the first poet laureate of San Mateo County. Her recent essay, The Monkey Place, about her trip to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, Canada, after the death of her husband in 2016, won the nonfiction prize at the Gumtree in 2019 and was performed as a podcast at Stories on Sage Davis. Her third poetry collection, Old Snow, White Sun, is forthcoming from Jack Lake Press in Chicago. Welcome, Caroline.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you everyone for being here, for sharing this space, and to Janet, thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. I'm going to start my timer, give myself 10 minutes. It really brings back a lot of wonderful memories to be here with you. And I see some current students, former students. So thanks for showing up and just, sharing the space. Things have changed so much in the last couple of years, but how wonderful that we can connect like this, even though we're all kind of zoomed out and, a little weary. I mean, there's like more than 60 people here for a poetry and mindfulness event, so how cool is that? So I'm going to talk tonight about just a little bit about my poetry journey, and I'm going to share some work with you on my screen. I do have Old Snow, White Sun is forthcoming from Jack Lake Press, which is a small independent press in Washington, D.C. But I also, tonight, I'm going to read from and talk to you from a collection called Matanuska, which is coming out from a small press in Wales in the UK. One of the things I talk about when I'm teaching is how important and how fruitful it can be to research our ancestors and people who've come before us, and specifically the poetry voices of our own particular past, whatever culture we come from. So in 2012, I had the privilege of traveling to Wales in the UK and giving a reading and meeting a bunch of really cool people and learning about that place, and how one of the things I was very interested to learn was that when the English started their expansion, competing with other European countries, in the north part of Wales, the rivers and the mountains really helped the people preserve their culture and language. There's Welsh-speaking people there today. And so I took a class when the pandemic started with a bilingual Welsh poet named Rhys Trimble, performance artist. And many of the people in that class were collaging, and their poems were mixtures of visual images and pieces of text, and then also their own voices. And it really changed my practice, and I started collaging. So I'm going to show one of my pieces of collage tonight and talk about my process and my my rules that I have for form. And then I'll also read a couple of collage poems. But before that, one of the guys I met over in Wales was a young man named Stephen Hitchens, who lives in central Wales and has these beautiful they're sort of essay poems called Zones of the Coal Field Interior, Poetries of Coal. And he explores the history and the countryside and his place in the landscape. And he writes, I use collage to say things I didn't know I was going to say, to allow words to combine in different orders without my control. So when we're working, we're sort of allowing things to happen, which is a form of attention, like Janet was talking about, and like Lisa was talking about, just making space for these things to occur. Having some rules and having some parameters can be helpful. So here comes my collage, and I'll tell you why I'm sharing this particular one. So this is the Heliamphus sunflower collage that I made in my collage series, and these are going to be in my forthcoming book as well, on the cover, and so I'm super excited about that. But I just made up some rules for myself, and it became a way to sort of start to integrate and grieve my beautiful husband Nick, by incorporating. So one of my rules is I have to have his handwriting somewhere in the collage. So here is his little list of expenditures: Safeway, movie, McDonald's, and Target in Nick's handwriting. And then I have to have his face somewhere in there. This is one of my favorite pictures of him. He had just caught a halibut up in Alaska, and he's very happy about that. I also, one of the elements I have to include, these are my 7 rules for my collage, is this is me when I was 10 in Anchorage, north of Anchorage, Alaska, frog hunting, looking for frogs in this meadow. And I have to incorporate some scientific language, which is here, my daughter's chemistry class, some work of my own, and some seed beads and purple Sharpie. And then my last rule, number 7, is that I have to have some famous poet from the canon. So this is Walt Whitman, Song of the Open Road. Alone, wherever you are, come, be not discouraged, keep on. There are divine things. And then also I'm trying to embrace little mistakes. So there's my little boo-boo that I'm just leaving it. I wrote an E and just wrote over it. So, and then recycling and allowing myself to use things that I find sort of sitting around. These are the insides of envelopes of, they're great for collage because they have all these tiny little sort of designs. So please recycle, and then different. And then this is Yupik. So anyway, I'm making that space and having that attention. I choose a shape from nature because I love nature. And then I also have to put in a contemporary poem or poet that I admire. So you'll find right here, Lisa Rosenberg, Your Past, Flat on the Table and Dull as Tin, from a different physics poem called Biography File. So anyway, allowing play, allowing research into the ancestry of your family and poets from the past can be really, really exciting and really fun. Let me check my time. Oh, I've got a couple minutes. Let me just show you a couple of these poems that are going to be coming out in Matanuska. What I did, and I'll put a link in the chat as well. These were published in a little online literary journal in Wales called Junction Box. And the editor of Junction Box, a guy named Lynn Davis, has a press called Aquifer, and he has read through 80 of my 17-line poems. So sometimes too, when you're writing poetry and sort of making space for your creativity and your mind and your heart, finding a form that you like or that you invent can be also really fun. Like if you love haiku, just like write as many haiku as you can, or Find a form that comes from your culture that poets were practicing, 100 years ago, and play with it, or make one up. So I made one up. And so my whole book is these 17-line poems. I didn't want them to be short like a sonnet, I didn't want them to look like sonnets, but I kind of wanted them to look like sonnets. And so I'll just read a couple of them, and I think my timer's going to go off in the middle. But what these are worldwide COVID-19 death counts, then the scientific and the common name of a plant, and then the exact date and time of the worldwide COVID-19 death count. So and then I repeat a piece of text 3 times throughout the poem. So this is the first one. I'm going to read 2 of them. This is Whortleberry, and on January 22nd, 2020 at 0900 Pacific Standard Time, the worldwide COVID-19 death count was 17. The fresh, clean fish, rabbit, or duck, and under my feet green ice, the ice holding its own array of paper birch seeds. And they are like stars in their shapes and in their assorted romantic arrangements, and they are lady birch, gray birch, keen-eye birch under the soles of my feet of my boot print, the fresh, clean fish, rabbit, or duck, whose habitat varies from the bogs and tundra to the lowlands and subalpine meadows, whose jawbones gleamed in the rushes, the palms of my hands, the extremities, where the pelt and the sinew, the wood stove and snowshoe, and they are like pools shining or holding the white sky before us. And they are like my skin, the very cells, the marrow and helix, the fresh, clean fish, rabbit, or duck. I was raised in Alaska, so cleaned rabbits and ducks are part of my childhood. And so I will read the last one in the collection. And these are all the source texts I use. Like I was collaging up a storm, man, all these amazing different texts, putting them together to like see what would happen. So I'll just read this and I'll finish with this one. And thank you so much for your attention. It's so good to see everybody tonight. This is Lady Smock on June 22nd, 2020 at 0941 Pacific Daylight Time. The worldwide COVID-19 death count was 471,680. Based on the doctrine of signatures, a European method popular in the 1600s, associated the healing powers with resemblance to human anatomy, human growth according to its benefits, its rituals, or 9-bark, streambed, riverbank, chosen landscape, women's work, nursery catalog, tea rose, picket fence, copper kettle, a cotton cloth embroidered with blue flax flowers, a pot holder, a bruise there if you would just in the driveway. And what I meant to say was, based on the doctrine of signatures, a European bushel of Timothy, the moment by which you judge the other pain by, the pinprick of light at the eye's edge, and this for your own good, the snap, crackle, cobweb, the moth wing caught, and he's so sorry, and say this then, buckle up, it happens. The raised hand, the nosegay, the river mouth repeating, pearly everlasting, and Eden, based on the doctrine of signatures, a European. So that is my sharing of my weird poems with you tonight. Thank you so much for listening. I'm so happy to see everyone, and be well.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Those were beautiful poems. I hope everyone has gotten something out of this presentation tonight, and that maybe you are somewhere a little further along on your mindfulness journey. We are going to close now. We are over time. I want to thank our guests tonight, Supervisor Slocum, Janet Stickmon, Lisa Rosenberg, and Carolyn Goodwin. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.